Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sharon Gao Show. Today, we are going live with our guest is Rich Bracken. So Rich is a global keynote speaker, media personality, and marketing executive. He works with associations, companies, and individuals across the country looking to establish sustainable change and improvement in their approach to achieving their goals. Rich is also a frequent speaker and a writer on topics such as what we're going to talk about, emotional intelligence, also leadership, goal setting and achievement, sales, client service, and presentation skills. As a writer and a media personality, he has been featured through such media channels as Fox News, CBS News, Vice, Reader's Digest, Thrive Global, and has worked with such global organizations as MDRT, Media Professionals International, and the Legal Marketing Association. This is very, very impressive, Rich. Thank you so much for being here today.
And thank you for having me, Sharon. I'm excited to talk with you, and let's have fun talking about emotional intelligence.
Yes, absolutely. So before we begin, I just also want to welcome people who are joining us live today. Thank you so much for your support. Please leave your name and where you come from in the comments, and also please remember to ask questions. While we are talking. In the end, we are going to have a few minutes for Rich to answer questions. Okay. All right. Okay. This is such an important topic, like emotional intelligence. I'm sure most of us have heard of it, right? But the relationship between emotional intelligence and our physical and mental health is not something that we think about every day. So can you share with us more about this?
Absolutely. And when I dive into emotional intelligence, I always want to pause at the front end, because not people have probably heard the term emotional intelligence, but maybe they're not quite sure what it actually is. And so I keep things very simple in my life. So I'll give you the simple definition and the simple explanation of what emotional intelligence is. So emotional intelligence is really understanding and how you manage your emotions and how you interact with other people. When you think about emotional intelligence, there are several different schools of thought. The one, and again, I keep things simple. So the one that I subscribe to is through Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Dr. Travis Bradberry wrote this book. It's fantastic. It was where I really learned what emotional intelligence is. And when he talks about it, he talks about how there's the personal side of things. So if you imagine two sides, so there's personal and there's social. Personal, you have personal awareness, individual awareness, self-awareness. And really what that is understanding what emotions you feel. And then you have self-management, which is really what you do with those emotions, because emotional intelligence is not a situation where if you understand it, you're just going to be completely oblivious to bad moods. You're going to be very zen and impervious to negativity. Like that, you're still going to have those things. But acknowledging that you have those emotions is one thing. And then what you do with them is another. I mean, we all probably know somebody who is considered a hothead, who gets angry and doesn't know how to manage their anger very well. At the same time, people let their emotions, both positive and negative, get the best of them. They have a low emotional intelligence. But those that are really in tune with their emotions and then do really good things with them or control them in a really good way have a high emotional intelligence. So that's the self side of things. And on the social side of things, when you have social awareness and relationship management, social awareness is really understanding the other person, reading their body language, listening to their tone, engaging in active listening, really what you're doing to serve them and listen to them. And then your emotions combined with their emotions and your observations of the two is where relationship management really comes into play. And so if you think about like the first 5 people that come to mind that are most important to your life, you could probably say, well, I have a great relationship with them. This one could be a little bit better. This one's okay, or this one's terrible. Maybe it's a coworker or a family member or a friend or a spouse or whatever. And you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to them. So you don't have a really good relationship with them. Now, when it comes to our mental health, that is the most critical piece, is understanding your emotional intelligence, because we have what we call emotional triggers, things that will either set us in a positive or a negative way. And when we think about how we handle our mental health, we let things get to us, or we get overly expanded on our time. We expend too much. We don't take really good care of ourselves. We burn out very easily. When you have a higher emotional intelligence, you tend to set stronger boundaries. You tend to let people know where you stand on things. You're a better communicator, and not you don't internalize your emotions very much. So you communicate and kind of say, hey, look, I need to step away from my desk, or I need to take a day off, or whatever that is. Those people that have a high emotional intelligence take really good mental care of themselves.
Like you were talking about, like being aware of our emotions. I think that is probably most important step, because like you said, like most of the time we're just not aware of what's going on with us or with other people. We just have all these emotions. That's normal, right? But what is not normal, we just let those emotions kind of manipulate us or control us. We are almost on autopilot every day without realizing we're dealing with all these kind of emotions, and we just let it be, not interfere with them. And lots of times we are controlled by our emotions, or especially those negative ones. And lots of times they are negative emotions, and we are consumed by them. Like you said, it's not only just the emotions. It's actually it affects our health, right? You were talking about mental health, but and I think it's also a chemical interaction. So it actually affects our physical health as well. So while we feel emotionally affected, like very upset or angry or disappointed, we do feel sick physically. And when those kind of emotions accumulated for a long time without really we try to manage them, and then for the long run, the accumulation will cause a serious chronic disease. Yeah.
Absolutely. You everything you said is spot on, Sharon. And it's really important that people understand that by not managing your emotions correctly, because like you said, you're going to feel sad, you're going to feel angry, you're going to feel stressed out. But if you don't do the right things with them, it can have very serious effects on your physical health, not only your mental health, but your physical health as well. I'll give you a perfect example. I was challenged with a coworker once where this individual, I had a standing meeting with them every week on Thursday. I would start getting stressed out on Wednesday because I would look at my calendar for Thursday to plan ahead. I would see that meeting, think about that individual. I would get stressed out. I spent the next 36 hours stressed out about that one person. And that would either cause me sleep deprivation, it would cause me higher anxiety, higher stress rates, and I would internalize that emotion. I didn't manage that emotion very well at all. And it had a very profound effect on me. Once I freed myself of that, it changed the game completely. My stress was lowered, my anxiety was lowered. I mean, all of the things that when you think about stress and anxiety, it has impact on your heart. It has impact on your physical, like you have higher levels of cortisol. You're going to stress out. I stress eat. I'm a big time stress eater. So I have an overabundance of chips in my pantry, and that's my comfort food. I go to that. Or, some people tend to go into junk food or alcohol or things like that, where it's going to have physical detriments to your body. So it's not just the physical, but it's also it's not just mental, it's also the physical as well. So you're exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And also, like when we're talking about emotions, we're not just only the emotions, like I'm upset with my coworker today. Lots of times we're so obsessed with the emotions even happened in the childhood. Emotions happened a long time ago. We just start like get hold with those things because we don't realize then how negative impact it has on our health. We just let it be and like obsessed with those things. I guess maybe by doing so, we feel like those emotions are like identify who we are. Like we feel like, okay, something happened in my childhood, and I talk about it again, I suffer from it, and that defines who I am today. So almost like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like make us feel comfortable by repeating those kind of emotions, like almost something that we need to understand who we are now, even, right? So it's
exactly. And yeah, and I'm not afraid to share this personal example. I struggled as a child. I was a real, like very thin athletic kid. And then my doctor told my parents that I had asthma. I became a McDonald's video game kid, didn't play any sports, wasn't going outside. So I became a very heavyset child. And that brought about depression, self-image problems. I was bullied quite a bit. So mentally, I had a problem with that. Now, as I got bigger, I brought my identity along with football. So, if I'm a football player, I'm supposed to be big. So it was okay. When I got done playing football in college, I did not give up the eating habits, but I gave up the workout habits. And so I continued to gain weight. And then finally I said, I don't need to be this big. And so even when I lost all of my weight, I lost over 100 pounds. I've kept it off for 20 years. But that mental part of it, that emotional connection to the self-image was still there. So even at my lowest weight, I still considered myself mentally that heavy-set kid that wasn't worth anything. So my emotions, my management of my emotions was very low because I could not let go of being teased as a child. I could not let go of my insecurities as a child. And it took me years to figure that out, what that actually was. And once I figured that out, I took that control back. So that emotional intelligence came into play for me. But, it was very, very damaging for a long time because I couldn't mentally let go of those childhood pain points.
So it's like you start with the self-awareness, like you are aware, what emotions can do to our physical and mental health and how it impacts our life. And then you were saying like you had the self-realization, right? Like about
yes.
Yeah.
And with my emotions too, it was, I would think to myself, hey, I either don't look, I battled body dysmorphia. Like I struggled with that mightily to say, hey, look, I'm not worth what everybody thinks I'm worth because internally I'm still that heavyset kid. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that my emotions were based off of the teasing of kids at 13, 14, 15, and I was hanging on to that. And now when I look back on it, I'm like, I don't regret it because it was a growth opportunity for me. But at the same time, I realized that I was basing my self-worth off of the opinions of others. Mm-hmm. And we should never do that because everybody's going to have an opinion. Everybody comes with an opinion based off their own background. So if somebody is a bully, which most bullies are lacking emotion and lacking comfort in their lives as well. So they're taking it out on me or somebody else. I was basing years of my own self-worth off of that. But once I realized that, once I was aware of why that emotion was in the place that it was in, I was able to manage it better. So to your point, it all starts with self-awareness. And once you wrap your head around why you feel a certain way mm-hmm. and what you're actually feeling, the control comes back. It's almost like somebody opens the floodgates and now all of a sudden you have all this control back and you become happier because you now realize all of these things that have been holding you back.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about like things that happened, in our life that cause all kinds of emotions, even, emotions that we get a hold on for so long. Some people get a hold on the emotions throughout their whole life, emotions from the childhood throughout their whole life, without really doing anything about it, But nowadays, because we live in this social media age of like,
oh my gosh, yes.
Like older days would be, okay, I care about what my coworkers say about me or my family, my friends say about me. But nowadays, we're even obsessed with, okay, what are the people on my social media will say about me? So people started creating this kind of a fake image about themselves, and those are not really themselves. They could be like crying 1 minute ago. They could be just literally crying, but then they wipe the tears off and they will do a selfie and smiling and happy and creating this kind of wonderful, perfect image of themselves. But and the followers will say, or starts like, oh, this is wonderful, like she's having a wonderful life or whatever. But the reality is her life is not any better just because of that perfect selfie. So how do you think that in this social media time, how we can, what kind of things we can do really help us to improve our health in that category?
Yeah. So, and I love everything you just said because it's the reality. And so I think the overall theme when I think about social media and I think about mental health or emotional intelligence, I think that you have to take social media with a grain of salt. because while it's a great connector, it's one of the, like, I will say social media and the internet is the best and worst thing that's ever happened to our society. So there is obviously, you know, case in point right here, we were able to connect through social media. So that's a positive. But when you think about social media in and of itself, and we all do this, I've been guilty of this too, where how many times do you take a picture before it's the right one to post? Or how many times do you look through the different filters to make sure that you look as good as you possibly can? And then it's tricky because you put that best self out there, what you think is your best self. And then you look for the response, you look for the likes, you look for the comments, you look for the follows. And we get so caught up in all of those things that all of a sudden we're now basing our self-worth off of the reactions of others. One of the most fascinating and terrifying movies I've ever watched is I'm struggling to think of it. It's a Netflix documentary on social media. It's not The Social Network because that's the Facebook movie, but I'll think of it in a minute. It'll come to me. But it dives into how social media channels are run and the algorithms and the back-end technology. And so you may think, oh, why is Sharon mad at me? She hasn't commented or liked any of my posts. Well, the algorithm may have not been putting my posts in your feed as frequently. So you may not be engaging in them just because you can't see them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we're quietly suffering because we're thinking, oh, well, Sharon must be mad at me. What did I do to her? I'm so sad. Like all of a sudden. And so it's wonderful, but be careful. And I say, you know, the best thing to do, and where I have actually found the highest levels of engagement, is when I'm just very real. I posted a story this morning on Instagram where I had just gotten off my Peloton bike. I was a hot, sweaty mess.
I love those things, by the way. I saw you posted like you
play thank you.
sports, and you just very spontaneous, like on the real life situation.
Yeah, and to me, I love, like I had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier who is a big time influencer. She's a New York Times bestselling author. And I told her that I loved this video of her because it was very real. Mm-hmm. It was relatable. I connected with it, you know, and the first thing she said was, she was like, well, it wasn't like this other person's video. This other person's video was so high quality. Like, I don't care. What was interesting to me was seeing you sitting on your couch laughing with your dog in the middle of this video that you're marketing. And she's a big time speaker. She's a big time influencer. And I was like, that to me was more important than seeing some flashy Hollywood style video. Like, that was more important to me. So I think not only is it important to take social media with a grain of salt, it's also really important to focus on the quality of relationships. And I said something the other day on social media too, where I said, you know, pick 3 to 5 people every day, every other day, and genuinely reach out to them individually, text message them, call them, send them a handwritten thank you note, to engage with them personally. Because so often do we think, oh, I sent a direct message, or I commented, or I liked somebody's post, they know that I'm thinking about them. They may or may not know. And so those genuine relationships have gone by the wayside. And I think it's coming back around full circle where people are starting to realize the value in that as well. But please don't put too much self-value into social media, because there are other elements that are driving all of the impressions and all of the likes and everything else. And so it's you're putting your own self-worth to an algorithm, and that's not fair to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your suggestions, like just, you know, although it's social media, like we are actually targeting on, you know, people from all over the world, right? We could be your family, friends, could be somebody you totally have no idea who they are, where they are from. But I think we are all human beings. The best way to connect with even strangers is just be yourself, right? Be who you are. Because even through on the computer or internet, people can just feel like if you are genuine or something, like, yes, really, you know, like just for the show, you know. So yeah, absolutely, that's wonderful. So can you share with us some like tips and people can improve their emotional intelligence for better health?
Absolutely. And I will say that the best part about emotional intelligence versus your EQ, which is what most people use as an abbreviation for emotional intelligence, Your EQ can be increased where your IQ is static after a certain age. So it's beneficial because how many people do we know that are really, really smart people, but can't carry on a conversation or can't relate to other people? So EQ can actually be more important than IQ. And in most situations, it actually is. But when you talk about emotional intelligence, the ways that you can increase it personally are all either really fun or really mandatory, frankly. I'm happy to share slides with your audience and with your members as well that give them this list, and I'll touch on a couple of them. But one of my favorite ones is music. I used to be, in a former life, I used to be a national touring DJ. And so I'm a music freak. I love music. I have I think my iTunes is around 55,000 songs. I've got Spotify playlists for days. Like, I am a music nerd. And so when I talk about music, I always say, make sure that you have songs that cater to a certain mood that you want to be in. So what I've done on my Spotify is that I have like a set of workout playlists. I have a set of meditation, relaxation playlists. I have a playlist of good mood songs. I have, several playlists of, frustration songs or inspirational songs, things that I need to do. Or if I'm in a work mode, I've got songs that are really good for me to like put on my headphones and focus on what I need to do. I don't know many people. I don't think I've ever met anybody that says, I just don't like music at all. So everybody likes music at some level, even if it's minutely. So leveraging,
like, if not the music from now, if it's somebody else, something else, like a book or movies, not necessarily music, if music is not your thing, right? But I think what you are trying to say is really, have that thing, like whatever resonates with them, whatever can help them to improve their mood, or, help them to feel better, right?
Right. Well, and if you think about, I always use the example that one of my favorite songs to start the day with is a song by Prince called "Baby I'm a Star." Like, it's fun, it's high energy, all the lyrics are very confident, and so that song, I can't hear, like, there's an intro, like there's a synthesizer part where it just kind of like it builds up, it goes and it just hits, and if I hear that, my mood is immediately changed. I mean, within the first 2 seconds of the song, my mood is totally, I can be in the worst mood ever. I hear that song and I'll at least be in a good mood, if not a great mood. And so we all have those things, whether it's music, movies, TV shows, YouTube skits, or whatever is your thing. We have those things that either lift our spirits, calm us down, those things that we need to keep close to us, because you'll have a day where you need that lift. You can have the best morning in the entire world, and you can either be in a meeting, or you can check social media, or maybe your spouse made you upset, or your kids are annoying you, or whatever. But you can go to that, whatever that medium is for you, and indulge in that for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute, hour-long thing. I mean, if you need it to be, sure. But, I can listen to one song and then, whatever I need at that moment, and my mood is immediately changed for the better. So it's all about going to those things. But when we talk about meditation, like, I'm a big fan of meditation. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, 15 minutes on each end has changed my life in the last, I'd say, 10 years. What kind of
meditation do you practice?
I do a little bit of everything. Recently, because I'm a big Peloton freak, I've done the Peloton meditations. I'm a big, Aditi Shah and Anna Greenberg on the app are phenomenal with their meditations. I love, love, love their stuff. I'm a big fan of Calm. Like I said, I have a meditation playlist on my Spotify that I'll go down in my basement. I have a workout room down there, and I'll go down there, turn out the lights, light a candle, and turn on the music and just sit. And how many times, think about, 1:30 in the afternoon for you, 3 o'clock in the afternoon for you. Doesn't sitting in quiet, in peace, and focusing and just being calm for 5 minutes sound just amazing? That sounds, because we get so crazy busy that just to sit in quiet for 5 minutes and focus our energy does amazing stuff. It just changes your day, and it takes your control back over your emotions.
It's a wonderful way to manage the stress, because during the day, after long hours in the morning and all the pressures we have in our daily life, either work or from family, we're so busy and we are so stressed out. Lots of times we just hold our breath without knowing it. We don't even know how to breathe in a normal way, because we're so busy, so stressed out. But like you described with the 5 minutes or even 3 minutes, even 2 minutes, just let yourself sit there, like, feel so relaxed, and so give our body and mind a chance to really relax,
Yes.
to repair. That's really wonderful. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, what else besides music and meditation? What else?
Music, meditation, and I got my list pulled up here, and like I said, I'll send this to you so you can share with everybody. Music, meditation, exercise. I mean, I will say that exercise has saved my life in many ways, both as through my weight loss transformation, and then also from a stress standpoint. I have a Peloton. I have my I call it my Frankenstein weight set, where I've collected these weights over the years, so none of them match, but they all work. And then I one of the best $100 I've ever spent my entire life was on one of those water weighted punching bags. I haven't used it in a while because I've been managing my emotions very well, but for a while there, that became like my big stress relief. I'd go down there and box. I'd put on some music and box and do like 3-minute rounds where I would just do combinations and work the bag, and it was great for stress relief, and it was a great physical exercise as well. I love running as much as my knees don't like me running. I love to run. So those elements help me take control of my emotions and help me feel better. But again, it's really understanding that you have those things that you can implement in your life that are under your control, that are up to you. And one of the other things that I always recommend, it's fun to an extent, but it's calendar blocking. Because how many times do we hear people say, "Oh, I'm so busy. I'm too busy. I've been crazy busy lately." Busy is not a thing. Busy is a lack of prioritization. And that includes you. So if you can't prioritize yourself, you're going to wind up burning out. You're going to wind up not operating at your best level. So I always recommend to people, like, if you need to put on your calendar, I am exercising from 5 to 6 in the morning, do that. It's not too much to say that, because it keeps you accountable. Or if you're in the middle of a day, because how many times do we have those days where our calendar looks like one meeting into the next, and we just don't have any breaks in the day, and we think, okay, when am I going to eat? When am I going to get water? Because I have to be in this meeting, and then I have to go right into this meeting, and I have to go right into this meeting. And if we think back of the days of like high school, in between classes, we had passing period where there was 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it was, depending on how big your school was. We had that time in between classes, and we don't give ourselves that as adults. And so if you think about your day, like your class schedule in college or high school, and think, oh, okay, if I have a meeting from 9 to 10, I need to block 10 to 10:15 to be able to figure out what I just talked about in that meeting, what emotions I had out of there, what can I delegate, what emails do I need to return, what phone calls do I need to return. You're giving yourself that time, because otherwise we're in a 9 to 10 and a 10 to 11 and 11 to 12 and then a 12 to 1 lunch meeting. God forbid one of those meetings goes 2 minutes over. We're now stressed and behind the rest of the day. Yeah. So by scheduling either 25-minute meetings or 45-minute meetings, and then taking those time blocks and blocking them off intentionally and keeping those for yourself, you take a lot of power back in your day.
Absolutely. I really love what you just shared. And I think it's very, very important for us, especially like for my audience, they are busy executives or entrepreneurs. Lots of them have very busy schedule. Nowadays, it's almost like, it's something like kind of a, I don't know, like if we tell people we are really busy, it's almost like make us feel like I am an important person, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm so important. I have no time to sleep, no time to eat, no time for my family, no time for my friends. It's like I'm so important. We sort of like need that to make us feel like important, But right. The reality is, it's really about the priority. What it is the most important thing for us, I think nobody wants to argue, is our health, right? So right. If you understand the importance, the priority that we actually need to have for our own health and happiness, and I'm sure it's easier or it's possible for people to put those important things like self-love, self-care, things that you just shared, meditation, eating, exercise, eating better, all those things in the calendar. Make sure that we get all the nutrients, make sure we get some exercising every day, make sure we do breathing exercise or, meditation, whatever that can help us to feel better physically and mentally. I think it's again, we go back to awareness, really understand, like we need to understand how important it is and then take action from there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I agree. I think for some reason, I don't know who started it, but there's now a pride competition of how busy we are or how little we sleep. And I don't know why that's like a badge of honor for some people. But the problem is that if you think about busyness, that brings anxiety. If you think about lack of sleep, that has a lot of physical problems that come along with it. So you're telling me that you're proud that you don't sleep a whole lot.
Right.
But in actuality, you're hurting yourself. So you're proud that you're hurting yourself to be more accepted and more valued or more important. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like
Yeah, it's not just the way talk like that. It's reality. That's why, like in the United States,
Right.
we have 70% of people who actually suffer from chronic disease. So it's like we can get by. Like I live in California, in Los Angeles, so the traffic is really bad, like jammed all the time. So some people, they drive like 2 hours every day, go to work, and then they just say, oh, it's normal, just shake it off. But the reality is our body cannot stand it if it goes on and on every day. One day it's going to say, no, I'm sorry, I cannot do this anymore. So when that day comes, it's already too late, because when people start having chronic disease, it gets expensive, it gets impossible sometimes, right? And the quality of their life is compromised. So it's really just important, like before that happens, what and how we can do for ourselves to prevent those things to happen. So all the things we just talked about is so important. Like really, please make the time. Please set your health as priority in your life. No matter how important you are, no matter you are the leader of the whole world, still we are human beings. We cannot stand, like having a life like without sleep or without eating healthy or, those necessary things.
Right. If you climb the ladder as an executive because you've not slept and you've been too busy and you hit 45 and you have a heart attack, I mean, what good does that do anybody? It does no good. So you have to take care of yourself. I agree. And anybody who's listening to this, please prioritize yourself, because you are your most important asset, and you need to take care of yourself first and foremost, because you can never, ever pour from an empty cup.
I cannot agree with you more. I always say you are your own priority. So
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's your thing. You have to take care of that yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. Thank you. So
thank you for having me.
If people want to follow you on social media, how they can find you?
Sure. They can start. You can find everything at richbracken.com. You can find me. I primarily am on Instagram and Twitter at richbracken1, but those links are on my website, richbracken.com.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's see what kind of questions we have here. Yeah.
Let's go for it. Let's see what we got.
Okay. How do we know or test if someone is emotionally intelligent?
So that's a great question. Actually, the really cool thing about Emotional Intelligence 2.0, the book, is that he has a test to score your emotional intelligence. So you can actually test what level you are through that book. So if you pick up the book and educate yourself on that, you can take that test. I'm sure there are some other online tests. There's an online test for everything. I mean, if I want to find out what Disney princess I'm going to be best being, then I can figure that out too. So I'm sure you can find another emotional intelligence test. But the book itself has a test in it, which is fantastic. But really, when you think about the people that, like we've been talking about, people that are too busy or we don't sleep, people that are, temperamental, people that don't listen when you're talking to them, your typical narcissist has a very low emotional intelligence. So if they start showing qualities that are not empathetic to people, that are not self-care driven, that aren't emotionally controlled, or that don't care about carrying on really good relationships or giving two ways in a relationship. I mean, how many times have we met people that are really just in it for themselves? Those people have a low emotional intelligence. So you can either test it to a like a double-digit factor in the book, or as you're meeting people and you're having communication, look at those different tendencies. And if they are tough to deal with, tough to talk with, they don't listen, or they feel very selfish, they probably have a low emotional intelligence. Or if you don't know anybody like that, what's the old saying is that if you don't know somebody who's a jerk, you may be one, because everybody at least knows one. Not saying that y'all are, but what I am saying is that pay attention to those mannerisms in people as you're talking to them, and then understand if they start showing those tendencies, they're going to have a low emotional intelligence. And so you need to ramp yours up and be able to manage that relationship even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Patrick here says, I would love to see in the slide deck that you talked about, like, you said you have a slide you can share with us about things that we can do to improve our emotional intelligence.
Yes, Patrick, I'll make sure that you get a hold of that. I'll send it to Sharon the minute this is over, and she can send it over to you. So if you want to make sure Sharon has your email, you'll get that slide deck.
Perfect. I would definitely do that. Okay. So another question is, how can we teach our kids to be emotionally intelligent?
That's a great question, because I have two sons that are 8 and 5, and I try to teach them that all the time. And so what I always try to do with my kids, and it's still a learning process. I don't have the manual on how to be a perfect father for an 8 and 5-year-old. I'm trying to figure it out myself. But what I do with my sons is that when they start showing emotions that are a little bit outside of control, I sit them down and say, explain to me how you're feeling. Because so many times kids will do something, or they'll act a certain way, or they'll either throw a fit or act disobediently, or do something that is, the immediate response as a parent is that, oh, they're just acting up, I need to correct this. But what we should be doing is engaging, why do they feel that way? Because kids don't inherently act bad. They usually do something. So if you think of a baby cries when they're hungry, or they're tired, or they're wet. And so there's a problem associated with the negative behavior. Not that crying is negative, but so as kids get older, they're still trying to figure out how to express their emotions. So the other day, my son was having a day where he just wasn't listening, wasn't paying attention, wasn't following any kind of directions. And I sat him down and I said, what's going on? Like, is there something that you need to share or express? Or is there something that's bothering you? And we had a great talk about it. And he understood that it's okay to acknowledge those emotions. If you're sad about something, or if you're frustrated about something, it's okay to share it, especially with boys. I mean, girls, I don't have any daughters, but from what I know of my friends that have daughters, they're great at expressing their emotions. Boys tend to not do that. Mm-hmm. And we as a society are inherently teaching boys to keep their emotions inside, when we should be telling our sons to express themselves, and our nephews to express themselves, share their emotions. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry, but let's figure out why and what we can do to address it. So my overall direction on that is just to sit down with your children and check in with them, and don't wait until they misbehave to do it. Sit them down on a random time and just say, how are you? Are you happy? What emotions are you feeling? And let them talk, and just listen to them and ask them questions. Because once they feel that they can express themselves, they'll be in much better control over their emotions.
I really love that. I think it's so important that we create such kind of environment for our kids. It's super, super important. But also, I think, as parents, because we want to protect our kids, we sort of want our kids to be happy, be safe. So lots of times we just want to protect them, from getting hurt, from feeling disappointed, from feeling sadness. But I think it's equally important to understand and to let them understand these kind of emotions are normal. It's part of life. Not just try to shield them from these emotions, but instead to tell them it's normal to feel sad, it's normal to feel disappointed, and it's normal to feel, whatever they heard, not uncomfortable emotions. So they give them the chance to really experience all these different kind of emotions, and also understand how to process it and to be okay with it, because eventually we won't be able to shield our kids from feeling those kind of emotions, even if they are unpleasant. So they have to learn and know how to deal with those emotions themselves.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better, Sharon. I feel the same way. Like, I don't ever want my sons to be angry or sad or hurt, but it's part of life. And when they understand that, and especially in the last 2 years since the pandemic, think about being a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, and you go into the grocery store, and not only are you seeing a bunch of big strangers, they're all wearing masks. I mean, that's intimidating to a child. Or if they've had to shift from an in-school or in-person schooling to a virtual schooling, or all the things that have been going on, they don't know how to wrap their heads around it. We've had a hard time as adults wrapping our head around everything. No matter where you stand on issues, it's been difficult. It's been challenging. It's been very frustrating. But children have it even worse because they can't understand what's going on in a lot of ways. So especially in the last 2 years, it's been more and more important to engage our children and have them express their emotions, because it's been a frustrating, challenging time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much. I think
Thank
we
you
are
for having me.
over time, but I really enjoyed talking with you. And as we said, this topic is so large and so important, and it probably will carry on at a different time. What do you think?
Absolutely. I would love to come back and talk more about it. And like I said, I mean, I've got plenty of resources, and I'm happy to send over these slides to you so everybody will have access to them. But if anybody ever has any questions or anything else I can provide for them, I'm happy to do it.